Out of all the companies you would imagine who would want to build a Web3 product or start a Web3 project, it was a law firm. So you can do forecasting and modeling of your total cost of ownership. And hence, the Hedera network, it doesn't have surge pricing, doesn't have variable gas fees. There were many criticisms. Decentralization. As a protocol network, we're public permissioned.
You've reached Toby and Brent. We'll get back to you.
We're almost catching the sunset here on the rooftop in the center of Hong Kong. I think you can say that. That's basically the center for me. And we have this incredible view in the background. And we have an incredible man here at the center.
I hope I can live up to the hype. I don't know.
Jeff, it's really, really nice to have you here.
Thank you
you for agreeing to meet with me and spending roughly about 30 minutes with me today. And obviously, would love to know who you are. Why are you having this H right here on your jacket? And
the H is for Hong Kong,
for
I guess. Just kidding.
Amazing, man. I like the humor part already. So just run me through. Who are you?
I'm originally from the States. I found my way into Asia, studied abroad here, fell in love with the region. But then obviously at the end of every study abroad, this was many, many years ago, eons ago, you got to go back home. And then when I went back, I had this longing of coming back to the region. Anyways, long story short, found my way here, got into traditional businesses around finance, advisory, consulting, technology. And it wasn't until around COVID that I get into Web3. And it was a funny story, even how I got in. Out of all the companies you would imagine who would want to build a Web3 product, or start a Web3 project, it was a law firm.
Oh, wow.
DLA Piper, Hong Kong office. I remember the first day I walked in, I was meeting with one of the senior partners there, and he had this proposition of, my clients are trying to do tokenization, but there's nothing out on the market that I can actually bill them and charge them for. They were working with different platforms, working with very early broker-dealers, exchanges, etc.
Yeah.
And honestly, security tokens and NFTs weren't really even a thing back in late 2019, right? Or just starting. And if it was anything, it was digital ownership of art, but it was just a digital twin, something like that. We were trying to figure out ways of structuring it in line with the regulations that were barely available at the time. And so Hong Kong has some very interesting structures. You can tokenize debentures, tokenize debt. Of course, you can do equities tokenization, but then you're straight up a security. We found out very interesting ways of actually creating a tokenization business. Too early for our time. Obviously, the technology was more private than it should have been, public permissionless. It was a consequence of the maturity of the industry at that time. And, why this H, right? One of the first protocols that supported us and really understood the power and the institutional nature of what DLA was trying to do was Hedera. And so we were very lucky. Both Scott Teal, myself, and the rest of the team were able to get funding through grants and then through other means of support, pitch to the partnership of the law firm, and the law firm itself backed us with a matching amount from the partnership. And you fast forward, the entity or the project got licensed in Dubai, in which DLA Piper with PwC were also advising VARA, which we all synonymous now with progress in our Web3 industry for regulation. And long story short, the project just kind of took off, right? After that, I continued with the Hedera ecosystem through different.
So you kind of switched?
I did. So once we finished the project, I got to the point where a law firm is not really meant to do anything outside of legal services, right? So it's hard to really scale if you're going to be building a tokenization business. At that time, the technology itself started to catch up. There was a lot of commoditized solutions out there, open source frameworks.
Yeah.
You could use to tokenize things. And honestly, the moat around structuring, because of work like projects like ourselves, it became more best practices. You followed them, right? Don't try to create some crazy wrapper with 5 different SPV layers and stuff like that. There's a way of doing it. And then standards started coming out, right? The different ERC,
Simplicity.
1400, now it's 3643 with APEX standard, Tokeny APEX, and just, maturity around the various jurisdictions. So, yeah, I mean, and then from the Hedera perspective, I was part of the ventures team at one of the entities, led the advisory practice for some time, basically helping other corporates and council members do what we did at Toco or at DLA Piper, but for their own businesses. Whether it was Tata Communications for their billing solution, or if it was WorldPay for their merchant acquiring and payments business.
Wow, been around.
EDF for the energy business, as well as, I don't know, I'm just rattling them off now, but but by no means, I mean, Hedera is an enterprise-focused chain, so we have a lot of these use cases. And then after a while of doing that, I joined the foundation, and the foundation, my mandate completely changed. I was all retail, and that's where we met in Singapore, actually, on how to tell stories and narratives, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're doing: DeFi narratives with institutional integrations. Very proud to now take up a new role with Hashgraph. Hashgraph is basically the technology labs entity within the Hedera ecosystem. And we have many different product services that are now battle tested and ready to go out to market in this phase of, I guess, Web3 maturity, which now we need to focus on revenue. We also need to focus on solving real problems, and whether that's with financial institutions, industry, or government. That's the area that I'm very passionate about looking after in the region.
I mean, kind of like makes sense with your background, right? I mean, I think it's fascinating that you started getting in crypto through a law firm, right? That ended up launching a project. I mean, that's one of the best stories I've ever heard, right? Because most people just stumble in, but you went like the most legitimate route you can go. Right?
It was also one of the hardest, I have to say. Yeah, it was one of the hardest, right?
Imagine. Yeah. And then obviously, I mean, a lot of people know Hedera, right? I don't think we need to go too much in detail of what it is, but I think what I want to highlight and what I put the focus on for a little bit is, you said Hedera is an institutional focused chain, and maybe just give a little bit of like an idea what that means.
Sure.
Right? Like what does it set it apart from like all the other chains out there? Where do you see like Hedera really fitting in?
Many eons ago, again, when Hedera first came to market, there were many criticisms. Decentralization. We as a protocol network, we're public permissioned.
Yeah.
What that means is there's a known set of node operators, and these are Fortune 500 companies. These Fortune 500 companies we have specific thresholds, like whether it's revenue, whether it's employees, whether it's industry. So it's a pretty high bar to actually come on and run and operate a node. And because of that, we are KYB'd. And then the individuals who actually represent the organization are KYC'd. What that downstream means, we are OFAC compliant. Other enterprises are wanting to build their solutions. They understand where we're coming from. Other corporates trust other corporates. That's one key differentiator. The other thing too is because traditional businesses are basically the driving factor of these use cases and these different, integrations into Web3.
Yeah.
What is one thing that needs to be known? Pricing. So you can do forecasting and modeling of your total cost of ownership. And hence, the Hedera network, it doesn't have surge pricing, doesn't have variable gas fees. It's all denominated against the US dollar and then fixed based on the services that you consume. What that does is it allows large companies and their procurement, compliance, and finance departments to understand how to actually manage and price out the transformation plan. And the last thing too is the governance, right? And this ties back to the OFAC compliance part. The governance is also unique because we are a group of Fortune 500 companies that meet regularly to make decisions, secure the network, and sign transactions to really propel the network in a way where it's in the best interest of all parties and all users. And that is one unique thing out of many, obviously, that really get us to be adopted by more institutions. And the final thing, we're EVM compatible, so it makes it even easier, right? And we're on top of traditional programming languages.
You know, if you lay it out like this, it makes total sense, right? I mean, especially if I put my head into the corporate side of things, they don't like unpredictability so much.
Yeah.
And with a lot of chains, there is, right? With a lot of the exact points you just mentioned. And I think also from a regulatory standpoint, I think that's obviously the biggest question mark for a lot of institutions, right? Because they have a brand to be perceived, they are compliant, they have to be, right? Because at the end of the day, without there would be a problem. And I think that was, I see this as Hedera as like big USP.
Yeah.
Like a very clear, obvious USP. And that's why I very much disagree with people that said like, oh, Hedera is not moving, Hedera isn't doing anything. Yeah, it might not be as like flashy or retail heavy, but like, getting it to a point where this is possible, that you can onboard institutional clients without major problems is like a very big achievement.
Thank you.
Right?
And I have to say, it has nothing to do with me, but the entire organizations actually behind the project over the many years. And yeah, getting now we have 33, 34 corporates, and soon to be more, with another layer of
34 companies.
Yeah, out of 39.
Wow.
Now we have another layer of partnership that is a tier below council membership. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But the fact of the matter is, like, the demand is coming for these institutional use cases. Getting up to that number of corporates is not easy. Yeah. The other thing too is, I didn't talk too much of the technical aspects of it. Speed, scalability, and cost. They're now table stakes across layer ones and layer twos. And Hedera solves the trilemma by being a DAG, right? That's one thing. And that's why we're called Hedera Hashgraph, like the novelty of the Hashgraph consensus mechanism.
It's rooted deep inside.
Exactly. It's the engine that really makes us truly. The other part I would say that's quite unique overall is the manner in which all of the ecosystems come together. During the US, obviously, there was a compliance requirements for us to decentralize. We also are very passionate about the decentralization requirements within our node operators, or how these nodes are actually operated. So you can say that, well, it's only 34 out of 39, 33 out of 39. How decentralized can you really be? But I challenge that back because, yes, you have other networks that have thousands of node operators. But again, the staking mechanisms that promote behavior and business activities on those networks, they just find the fastest corridors. So it could be 40 to 50% of all of the nodes are run between 3 or 4 AWS and GCP corridors. And then if there's an outage like we saw a couple times last year with some cloud providers, most of the network checkpoints get missed. Versus Hedera, we have 30 some, but we have other rules where no more than 1 or 2 cloud providers can actually provide node operations, irrespective of the availability zone. The requirement for some to be on-prem, others to be on other private cloud services. So even if you have an entire corridor go down, it's only affecting maybe one of the nodes. Yeah. So our decentralization coefficient is extremely high, even though we have a lower amount of nodes.
But I think that's like a general misconception, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like I could launch 1 billion nodes if I funnel them all through the same.
Exactly. It's a concentration risk is real.
So at the end of the day, for me, it's like, it comes again like quality over quantity, right? Like a bunch of nodes doesn't mean that you're more decentralized.
Yeah.
But if you have clear rules on the infrastructure level, even like one step below the nodes of like where they're hosted, where they're running, and I think that's where you still can achieve true decentralization.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like the worst thing you can have is like that risk of concentration, right? I mean, it's a big risk, right? Because it affects a lot of different things of the chain in itself. Very interesting point that you challenged that. I think that needs to be set in stone right here on this podcast so that everybody understands. It's not the number of nodes that necessarily matters. I want to like take a slight step away from Hedera.
Yes.
Because I know that you do a lot of other awesome work, especially, in the very beginning you said you kind of like, this region is important to you. After your short endeavor there, I went back and, obviously now predominantly based here. Maybe share us a little bit like what do you do in Hong Kong? I know that you're involved in a lot of initiatives, being politics, initiatives, communities. Maybe you just share a little bit like how involved are you in the ecosystem here?
Exactly. This goes back to like what I actually studied in the time that I was studying abroad here. It was a combination of international relations and international business.
You know what's funny? Just one thing, I want to jump in here. I was guessing when you were saying you started a law firm, I thought you studied law.
Oh, no.
I was like, how does this guy even know a law firm?
No. You know, the great thing about Hong Kong is that professional services are extremely mature here. I mean, generations of people who were consultants and bankers and other professionals before me, they really built a very, robust and cohesive market here. So, if you are a consultant, it's very easy that you can go work for a energy utility company, an airline, a large real estate developer, et cetera, manufacturing, all within 15 miles or around 28, 30 kilometers of...
Probably even less, to be honest.
Exactly. And you just jump around from company to company. So the learning is almost on overdrive. I'll touch back on that in a second, but going back to international relations, I felt like I missed the opportunity because when I was in 2005, so a year and a half after WTO, and I was seeing the people who were now my age, having their interesting roles of trying to build a new economy, set up a free trade zone, try to navigate commerce through developing a set of opportunities. By the time I finished all my studies and got back to Asia thinking that I would be one of them, they didn't need me anymore. But now being back here and doing the work that I do here in Hong Kong and APAC, though I said Hong Kong is very mature, but it's also a standard as a market for a lot of other countries in Asia Pacific. And so recently I've been going to Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia.
Yeah, you did a whole Asia tour.
Yeah. Working on different initiatives. Because of geopolitical reasons, right? More and more penetration and integration of Web3 and crypto infrastructure is starting to affect the citizens of all the different developing countries around Hong Kong, Singapore, etc. And so, I'm super excited about the work that we've been doing here in Hong Kong, which, aside from leading the work for Hedera and Hashgraph in the region, I also look after the industry association that represents all. It's member-driven. There are other protocols involved. There are large Web3 firms, exchanges, other Web3 companies as well as part of the association. It's called Web3 Harbor. We started with very humble beginnings almost 2.5 years ago when the Hong Kong government was wanting to understand how do you attract the Web3 firms and Web3 business back to Hong Kong? Because a lot of the innovations that we take for granted today, derivatives, now I'm going to say a few of the names of exchanges. Some are very successful, some are also infamous, but they all started in Hong Kong. And then what ended up happening was just a policy reversal. Many of them went to other jurisdictions like Singapore, Dubai, and some others. And now, with the direction coming back, many are coming back. So during that trend, Web3 Harbor really took root. And we started with dinners and roundtables, and then got into policy consultations for the VATP regime, and then now the OTC and VA dealing custody regime, and then soon to be other or stablecoin ordinance reviews and frameworks. And so we were very policy focused through our members. You fast forward, we then launched a blueprint in partnership with PwC, which is basically like a Web3 blueprint on how Hong Kong can adopt Web3 across all industries, including finance, to ensure that it's an international financial center for many years to come. We launched that, we actually announced that last year at Consensus, the first Consensus here in Hong Kong. Yeah. And then we finished the blueprint and released it in June. And then from June until last year, it was well read, well received by both public and private sector. Our members have grown significantly, and then we've worked with now the Hong Kong government in multiple different ways, and created 5 working groups looking after exchanges through VATP, asset management under the RWA role working group, our legal compliance working group for supervisory technologies. And setting standards, and then our stablecoin working group as well. to really go deep dive into the stablecoin regime and the ecosystem here. And many of those companies have all joined and been very, very proactive.
You can't just as quickly, you can't just join as a company, or like you have to like apply, or how does it work?
Oh, it's actually quite simple. Like if you have a passion, we have a working group for you. We also have other programming. Just come reach out to us at web3harbor.org, web3harbor with the British way of spelling it, with a U, .org. And and you can click to apply. The membership fees are nominal. I mean, they're pretty trivial. It's not about we're not for profit. We're here to help the members and then connect overseas Web3 firms to the infrastructure and the stakeholders here in Hong Kong, both public and private.
And build
as
these
well
like
as companies
frameworks
here to do well. Yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, where else can you just come to a single place, go meet a regulator, go talk to other Web3 firms like, Binance, Bullish, Galaxy. Like these are members within our organization. And then also go work with other protocols and then talk to Science Technology Park, Cyberport, and other elements of the Hong Kong government, InvestHK, FSTB, the SFC, as well as HKMA, like all in one go.
Yeah.
Right. That's the true value proposition, and the community is second to none. It's truly amazing.
I mean, it's hard to bring all these people on one table, right? And I think that's a huge.
It wasn't easy.
I can imagine, but I mean, it's a massive value add now, right? Because at least everybody is on the same table, talks about these topics, and you find frameworks that effectively can be implemented on scale, right? And I think that's what we eventually need to get to.
Yeah.
That not everybody is doing their little own things everywhere in the world, and nothing is compatible. But like, just get on the same page, bring the big companies that have impact, that can move something together with the government. So it's not reactive, it's proactive to figure out, okay, what can we do and how can we make things better, safer, and more efficient. And that kind of brings me to my last question before we wrap up. Hong Kong is dead. What do you think about that?
I completely disagree. If you look at the just the inflow of visitors is now back or now exceeded pre-COVID levels. That's number one. When you say Hong Kong is dead from real estate, it was, and now the pricing has been recovered. Mainly people coming back, both from overseas and a new influx from mainland China. I would say the old Hong Kong as we knew it is a little bit different. Like, I mean, the physical infrastructure is the same, but the composition of firms as well as the diversification of the economy away from just pure finance, it's a good thing for Hong Kong, right? We have multiple different new industries coming in, and then some of them are engineering technology based. We have a good mix of both East and West coming together, as this is a melting pot, has always been. It's just that the capital flows are coming from mainland China. And honestly, it's one reason why people come here, is to access the mainland Chinese market. It has always been that mentality, even before the handover. It's just a different way of looking at it today. I do disagree that Hong Kong is dead. In fact, Hong Kong has a new life, right? It's
reborn.
It's exactly. It's looking into the future. It has the people and the talent, the people and talent in one thing. It has the regulation that's coming to a level of clarity and maturity more than most other jurisdictions in the world. Again, it has always had the capital and infrastructure, right? It's a matter of, are we ready to merge all of the traditional Web 2 and Web 3 capital, technology, people, and talent all together? And I think we are.
Incredible. I couldn't have said it better. You took a very nice stance to that whole thing. And it's honestly amazing now coming back here and seeing Hong Kong literally revived. Right? It's busy again, and it's beautiful to see, because it is such an important part of the global economy. And I think it will always remain like that. And I think the Hong Kong government, as well as the organizations here, will make sure of that. And obviously with guys like yourself, having an important part in the whole thing, not just only the community driven by your degree and like many other influences you had, but also like the work you do with Hedera. Obviously tremendous company in the industry, has a lot of impact on how everything has been shaping. So yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation, man. Thank you so much for coming on, enjoying the sunset with me and having a nice little chat.
Thank you.
I appreciate all the insights, and we'll get back to you.